Cool.
Hey.
Hi, everybody. All right, podcast 254, I think.
53 or 54?
54, I think 53 was last week. All right, so today we're going to talk a bit about how we adapting the nutrition for Janine and performance. And actually, this seems to be, so far, this has been the best protocol for women.
Yeah.
Because I've tested it with a few clients, women, and that seems to be the best way of going at it.
I think so, yeah. We have been really consistent with it for the last, what is it now, 3 years? 2 years?
It's been consistent enough. I'll explain why I'm not doing it, but I'm saying for women because we've seen the results, but it can definitely be adapted to men as well. It just is based on fasting, so not everybody wants to fast. I just don't like being hungry. That's why I don't do it. I don't like being hungry. But it's more, I'm sure I could make it work. I just don't want to. Yeah. That's all. Like it's nothing else but that. But like, some dancer was pretty much fasting. Really? I had plenty of friends, like big dudes too, over 200 pounds, who were doing the fasting and it never bothered them. So plenty of strong people do fasting.
Fasting, it's been getting more popular. I would say more like more people talk about it, but I find it very, very useful. Yeah. I really enjoy it. I can never imagine not going through my day without fasting.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm all in favor for it. Some days I fast during the day, just not the 14 hours. Anyway, we're gonna go about it. In order to go about it, I first need to whenever we have a conversation on nutrition, explain what nutrition is and what is it about. Mm-hmm. Because I think the biggest issue we have when it comes to nutrition is determinism. And that's the same issue we have with fitness in general, is actually society in general, it's determinism. What I call the Lego theory. Like you put small pieces together and then at the end you get a big piece. No functioning system works like that, especially a living system, which is the human body. But that's true to any complex systems anyway. You have to understand, like when we talk about a living system, not to get into massive rabbit holes, but the idea is like a living system has one question to answer. How do I make it work within this environment? How do I survive? How do I thrive? How do I deal with the environment, right? But you have to understand, a living system will take whatever it needs to answer that question and change everything else in order to do that. Which means once you create a purpose, the body will change the entire system to go toward that. In a way, it's an extension of the free energy principles. But in biology, we see certain genes being changed in order to accomplish the purpose. So you have to understand, there is no Lego theory. No, genes are not the block of life. That's not true. We have seen about 95% of genes can be changed in order to fit the purpose. We see it, again, the flatworm, all that stuff. But that's not just genes. That's all living systems. So that means that, for example, the gut flora is a very good example, right, in itself, which means you introduce new food. What you will see is a change in the colonies into your gut flora. The percentages will change. You have a massive amount of bacteria, right? But they all group in colonies. You have bacteroids versus Prevotella. You have groups of colonies like this in your stomach. As you introduce certain foods or not, you see certain colonies grow versus others shrinking, right? So the percentages, the interaction between those bacteria change. As it changes, it ends up changing behavior, sensitivities, allergies, your reaction to everything. And by the way, that's only one of the parts of the system. Yeah. So you have to understand that if you introduce new food, you will change things all the way to your behavior. Therefore, the way you handle weights, the way you train, which of course would change the way muscle is being produced and everything. So the problem with determinism is we say, oh look, protein equals muscle. That is absolutely not true. The reason you're building muscle is because you introduce the purpose that muscle is required in order to face the environment. But as you do that, you need the hormonal levels, which is another system in itself, to to go into that direction, you need the training, you need the food. Like all of those are systems that work together. And in order to gain muscle, if food is one of the systems, it will pull toward that. But I mean, like it might go toward hormonal first. So no, muscle growth is protein. No, that's absolutely not true. It's not that simple. So, and in a way, that's the main issue. Is complex systems are incredibly complex.
Yeah.
And no, we don't always know. It's just like, for example, I keep referring to the gym because you have to understand, what drives really everything forward is the cell itself, the cell as a system. That's what seems to drive everything, not the genes. Gene is part of the cell, but the cell is not part of the genes type of thing. So it's what they call passive purpose versus active purpose. Is like, for example, a gene will allow you to make a protein, and then the protein will do certain things. The protein is the active component because the protein will do what it does. But it's not true that gene produce that protein. No, once that protein is there, other genes can also create that protein. So those genes are a passive purpose, not an active purpose. Does that make sense? They just use in the process of. So yes, certain genes will produce certain proteins, right? But there are other ways to create that message. The gene is one of them, right? So for example, the system can change the way those genes work in order to make the protein. If those genes were to be corrupted, the system will create another set of genes to create the protein. But it's a protein that actually causes the change.
Wow. It's a hard thing to wrap my head around still.
Right. So it's because it's because we learn things through functional segregation.
Yeah.
Which means you decompose things. So for example, the best example I have is the myotomes. When we study the body, it's simple. They took the skin off, look at what muscle did, and went, oh, look, pecs, biceps, and everything. And they start getting an anatomy chart. Once you have the anatomy chart, you look at what the pec major does. The pec major hooks on to the humerus a certain way. You contract, it does this. So therefore, the pec major is the internal rotator of the humerus.
Yeah.
Right. Except you take a pancake, you have an external rotation, and you still get the pec major. So it turns out, no, the pec major is not an internal rotator of the humerus. The pec major is responsible for adduction, internal torque. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But so it goes back down to what Einstein was saying. You can make things as simple as you can, but no simpler than that. That's a downside of determinism. It always goes too far into chucking it into pieces to the point where, no, it doesn't work like that, because now you took a complex system cannot be divided past a certain point. The total is more than the sum of all parts. It's that, okay, this is the greatest truth you will ever hear. The total is more than the sum of all parts. Once you have that total, you cannot divide any smaller than that. Because now you lost, by dividing smaller than that in a deterministic way, you've lost the value. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because now that you cut it down, you have less than one. Mm-hmm. So there's always that moment when you add all those things, where now the total became almost exponentially higher. You cannot break it down lower than that. So in order to, but when you get into complex system, how are you going to explain to people that hormonal, gut flora, this and this? You don't. So what you do is you take it down into smaller pieces so that your average person can understand it. Yeah, but you can't. And so that's been the problem of science, because they did not want to stay at a complexity level that were introducing flaws in their thinking. Because honestly, they came at a time where they just didn't have the knowledge to go further with it. Game theory, all that stuff, they did not understand the complexity of systems. Because how could they be so complex? Because if you start to talk about the complexity of life and everything, you always end up at that time in a talk about God. How can a cell, for example, if you talked about the free energy principle back in the 19th century, that a cell, the membrane of the cell is a Markov blanket that allows interaction with the environment, they would tell you, where's the brain? The cell has no brain. So who's doing that? And it goes like, well, life is. So now you talk about God. So there was really a push, especially in the medical side, but in science, but especially on the medical side, to have a very deterministic approach of things, to break them down to their smallest part, in order to not go toward God. The main issue with this is doctors were never scientists, ever. Biologists, barely. Physiologists, maybe, but most biologists are not true scientists because of the historical creation of the medical science. And so anyway, I'm diverging from the point. But so...
it's interesting though, because those are like fundamentals that are, you have to understand the flaws in the system. Like
Yes.
there's context to certain thing that is very, very, very important. The only thing I can compare it to is like, for example, it's very important that when you work with a barbell, you understand that you're not working a natural movement, that it is a made-up movement. I find, for
Yes.
example, that context is very important when you're learning a movement, because
Yeah,
you
the
go
back
like,
squat.
yes, it's not supposed to feel natural because it is not a natural
It is
movement.
not a natural, which is fine.
But
so,
you can have a
yeah.
natural tension, the
Yes.
same as tension as on the sandbag
But
squat.
it's absolutely
the
not a
movement,
natural movement.
exactly.
The back squat absolutely is
And
not.
having that context, for me, was mind-blowing. So I'm just making a
It's
little
all-
bit of a parallel. Like
Right.
having that context is mind-blowing, because you need to know what you're looking at when you're looking at those things.
Right. So, for example, the context when it came to the muscles, right?
Yeah.
Once we start to divide anatomy chart, yeah, but you're missing the myotomes.
Yeah.
So the myotomes is a nerve that goes from the spine that links muscle in a succeeding fashion. So that means there's a sequence to movement.
Yeah.
That means first there is not an infinite number of patterns. No, there is a specific one, because there's only so many nerves. We can count them, so we know exactly how many there are, and everything happens in sequence. So no, you cannot have you cannot have functional segregation of muscle all the way to the long head of the bicep or the short head of the bicep. They do not exist by themselves.
Yeah.
They only exist within a system. That's the stuff with Leonardo da Vinci and his models. You can't take a piece of his model and analyze what it does, because maybe it's just turning left. But that's not the whole system. Once you put all of them together, suddenly the crane goes up and down. But if you were to take one piece of it and study it, you would miss the whole part, the functional integration of all this. So what we are missing with nutrition is functional integration.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to talk today, to explain how we did it for Janine. So my view of nutrition is integrated within the whole system, which means it's a simple view, is nutrition is there to stabilize. Nothing else. We do not use nutrition to force muscle growth, strength, or any of that. So
Not even leanness, really.
no, it's not used to create anything. The point of nutrition is to stabilize. The training will be the destabilizing force. So what is the issue that I see with nutrition? Because of that deterministic mindset where functional segregation, we end up at the point that it explained of like, look, you train that much per day, you weigh that much, you have that much muscle. Therefore, your calorie intake should be X in order to maintain the training and your muscle mass. And that turned into, first of all, that's not true at all. And because there are many other factors we're going to talk about, hormonal levels, gut biome, all that stuff. Anyway. So, second of all, we get to the point is, so if I want to train more, all I got to do is eat more.
Yeah.
Like now, nutrition is the key to recovery, which is, of course, if you undereat by a massive amount, of course you're going to have issues, but you're going to have issues. Why? Because you created a purpose in the system where it's just going to try to avoid the work.
Yeah.
You're not going to sleep as well because it's going to take you, because your body is freaking out and it's basically telling you to go hunt because there's not enough food to matter. So of course, that calorie in, calorie out on some levels matter.
Yeah.
Yes, but my point is it's one of the things. So that lack of calorie can be compensated somewhere else. For example, losing some part of the muscle so that the energy that you would use to create muscle that is very, very taxing on a hormonal level can be used to do something else. So in order to carry the muscle, you need a certain amount of calories. Entirely true. But it is one of the things of that. So for example, on the same amount of food, you introduce steroids, you change the hormonal level, you start gaining muscle regardless compared to where you were before. You're not maximizing the muscle growth, but you're still gaining muscle even if you were to stay at the same amount of food. So it shows you the steroids will change your hormonal level.
Yeah.
So hormonal level is one of the keys. Well, there are other ways to change the hormonal level. So food equals recovery is a ridiculous idea.
Yeah.
It is one of the things, not the only thing, not necessarily the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and to give people an idea, like when I started the protocol and everything, I had a first year, I was figuring out what exactly was working for me. After 1 year trying, so that's about 3 years ago, we discovered that fasting was working really well for me.
Yeah.
But on fasting, like I eat literally the same for the last 3 years. I mean, I fluctuate a little bit in like a bit more of this fruit or a bit more of that fruit, but the dinner is always the same and everything's always the same. And I gained, what is it, like 18 pounds basically, which is like 8 kilos.
No, you're
kilos?
at 20 pounds of muscle.
20 pounds.
So not 20 pounds of muscle, but she's gained probably 2% body fat in that thing, maybe out of 20 pounds. So you can do the math.
Yeah. So let's say 20 pounds, and it was not the food that made me gain that weight. It was a training that made me gain that
genetics,
weight. Yeah, of course. But the
Right.
training really made the difference. Like, and another example of that is when I was sprinting, I never did strength training while I was sprinting because every time I did a 6-week cycle, my coach took me off.
Yeah.
That's how I got my 80
Yes.
kilo power clean at what was it, like 15, 16, because I did 6 weeks block of strength training, and every time I gained 5 pounds. And in sprinting, this is a lot of weight. And I was getting so slow, not so slow, but you saw the difference in my movement because I was carrying more weight. Like my sprint doesn't look the same because
also,
I'm 20 pounds heavier.
Yeah, but you also didn't have time to process the muscle.
Yeah, but I mean,
tissue
they
is
were
created and it has to be made to use. No, but they were just very short-minded.
Yeah, exactly. But just to give you an idea that once I introduced strength training,
Yeah,
I
you
already
blew up.
gained
Yeah.
5 pounds. That's just the way my body works when it reacts to strength training. So I really give credit to those 20 pounds in my strength training, not my nutrition.
Right. But even if we talk about the nutrition, by the way, when we talk about calories, this is still a fake conversation because what we're not talking about is digestion and processing of nutrients.
One of the most...
If you digest better, you don't need as much. So, for example, same amount of calories. Let's say you're on 2,000 calories a day, right? So you're not on 2,000 calories a day. You're on X amount of food. I take the X amount of food and I keep it exactly the same, but I make you digest and process the nutrients better. Then guess what? You're going to recover better, gain muscle and everything. I didn't change the amount of food that you eat. I just changed the way you process the thing because that's part of the system as well.
Yeah.
So the key to nutrition is not eating more. It's doing better with it. And that I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah, and that's actually very good point because like that's one of my favorite things actually you said. I mean, there's many awesome principles, but food ingested is not food digested. It must be one of the fundamental sentences of nutrition, but actually of training as well because it's the same for training.
Yeah.
But I feel that very deeply because when I started 3 years ago, I had some pretty
Your stomach was
not...
not...
I didn't have the best stomach. I didn't have the best digestive system.
You were allergic to a lot of food.
And that's the thing. I was very allergic, but I was also very responsive to any inflammatory. So I would get sick very often, but also things like I couldn't like sometimes cut my nails because they would get so inflamed. I couldn't always put on makeup because it would inflame my eyes. My eyes were always swollen. My lips were swollen. So
it was in the fillers?
I did it once, okay, and I never did it afterwards. Leave me alone.
But you were 18. I remember you showing up at the gym. I was like, did you get punched in the face?
Yeah, no, it was my rebellious phase. Yes, exactly. I removed them, and now I'm all natural. So don't come for me. But
no steroids, no fillers.
Yeah, exactly, and no surgery. Anyway, you lose my track of...
You were being inflamed.
Oh,
eyes,
I was very
lips,
I couldn't do anything. Like I couldn't put anything on my eyes because it would get so inflamed. And it took really, I would say 1.5 years.
2 years.
2 years for my stomach to be stable. But for
so she cannot take any supplements because of the fillers, right? Using pills or powder that will upset her stomach for 2 weeks.
And the only thing I can take is my vitamins and some fish oil I like to take, and some magnesium. But I cannot take creatine. I cannot take.
And we have to be very,
powder.
very careful of the filler itself because certain ones she cannot handle. So she has an excessively sensitive stomach. But I don't think it's sensitive stomach. She has an excessively sensitive inflammatory
system
level. Like she's allergic to a lot of stuff. Her actually interesting CRP is extremely low, so she's probably chronically inflamed, but not acutely. She doesn't have she gets sick a lot. Anyway.
But that was the first 2 years. The crazy part is what happened after those 2 years when I started to really stabilize. Like now my inflammation, I don't get sick at all. Yeah. That's the crazy part. I never get sick. I don't get inflamed. I can cut my nails anytime I want. I can even put eyelashes on and it doesn't inflame my eyes. I can put up makeup every single day. It doesn't inflame my eyes. But I do have to be very careful with what I put on my skin. Like it always has to be completely without chemicals, without bullshit.
Interesting.
And all the vitamins I take are also like bio shit, like hippie.
But very interestingly also, we're in Brazil. And in the first year, she had twice food poisoning. We don't even know why, but that wrecked her stomach. But she actually started to do better after that. Why? Because it reset her gut biome. So there's, and again, autism and gut biome, there's another talk to have about this, that where it's excessively important.
Yeah.
So basically, we're trying to lay the foundation as to why she eats the way she eats. But again, what I'm trying to convey is that idea that understand that purpose drives function. And so we are not looking at nutrition going like, oh, look, she trains so heavy, she needs to eat more. She eats the same way now, lifting 400 pounds for reps on a deadlift as she did when she was lifting 315 pounds for reps on a deadlift. She eats pretty much the same quantities, but her system is getting better and better at processing the food. The gut biome got better, inflammatory markers are down. Her entire system is better with food now than it was then. So we don't need to increase the food. We just need to make the system better all the time. And we did it through fasting, what we call a fasting protocol that we're going to explain now.
Yeah. So all of that was actually building up to the fact that it really took a long time for the system to adjust, but also that my recovery was not as good when I started versus now. Like now I eat the same amount of food. I train heavier, more and intense.
Harder, much harder.
And my recovery is up. Like the way, and after that, it also took 2 years for my mind to stabilize more. Because as soon as my inflammatory markers and my gut got better, my mind got a lot better. Yes, it's better than it was. And this is why actually fasting was initially something we were drafted towards, was because of the mental clarity it gave me.
I'm a brave man. I just realized that.
Explain yourself further.
No, I'm just saying.
Just explain yourself further.
Like that. So your mind has stabilized now versus 2-3 years ago, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I'm a lot more courageous than I thought. Anyway.
You think like
didn't
this?
Get that one?
No, but I mean,
I took a second there. Anyway.
No, I know, but I mean, like, I understand what you're saying, but I mean, they don't understand what you're saying.
I have a very short-term memory.
I'm not. Oh, you just don't realize how insane I was.
It doesn't matter anymore. Only what happens lately matters. So it's a great quality that I have. It allows me to go through things. Anyway.
But I mean, whatever.
What is the protocol? How did we do the protocol? So let's go. So it's fasting based, which means let's get it morning. When is your first? You get coffee in the morning.
Yes.
Just plain coffee
and some tea.
And some tea, and then when do you start eating?
I eat at 2 in the afternoon.
2 in the afternoon. What do you eat?
I eat an apple and a banana and a hand of nuts, which equals my espresso cup. So
So 1 banana, 1 apple, 1 espresso cup of cashews.
Yeah, which is not natural, so no salt, no roast, no whatever.
When do you eat again after that? 4 or 5?
Before my second session, so that's usually around.
Right. So you have a training session
in the morning, and then I just have some honey with tea. Before that, then I don't eat until 2.
Right, okay. So when is your session in the morning? Like 10, 11?
Yeah.
So 10, 11, she will train with some honey, because that's the protocol, right? We have carbs. While we train specially something as glycemic as honey, so we do that with the training. Then the food is 1 banana, 1 apple at 2. It's the second training session. After the second training session, what do you eat?
Same thing. Usually one apple and a same like amount of cashews, like
one apple,
and maybe a
espresso
banana.
cup of cashews, maybe a banana, right? And after that is dinner.
Yeah,
and dinner you
7.
eat as much.
I usually eat a kilo of red meat.
Let's say 600-700 grams of red meat. She's not kidding.
Yeah,
It's around 600 grams every time at least.
Yes.
Yeah. So that puts you like they say a quarter of protein. So you calculate she gets 150 to 100 grams of protein a day from the red meat, and she weighs 70 kilo each.
Depends on the day. Like usually, like, for example, like my weight class is 69, so I never want to.
She's a little bit heavier than 69 kilos.
But when I walk around, I'm comfortably at 70, 71 kilos. And listen, if I would actually eat, right now I'm at 71. Yeah. If I would actually eat like more, if I introduce, let's say I introduce a banana and apple, I'm literally 73 kilos.
Yeah, so 160 pounds, right? So she gets...
I gain weight fast. Yeah. People always think, oh, you're so lean. I'm like, yes,
so
because I work at it.
So she eats a pound and a half of red meat at night, right? Out of that, she gets half a pound of protein, and she weighs about...
which I cook, by the way, in ghee butter. She weighs about
160, a little bit under 160.
And a little bit of salt, which I like the salt on it because it helps me with my hydration. So I put like good salt and everything.
What's interesting... what we're talking about right now is, if you hear what we just said, it's pretty much the new age carnivore diet, but a protocol version of it.
Yeah.
Which means Salazar is the guy's name. He has honey and fruits during the day with red meat. So what we did is, in a way, we ended up in the same place. I didn't do it because of him. We just ended up there through the last 3 years out of seeing what worked better. And I think actually by the way, the Salazar guy is a guy also who had eczema, I believe. At least I know he had some skin inflammation issues. Yeah. I think he has high inflammatory markers. From what I understand, the carnivore diet works really well for people with skin issues.
Yeah, that by the way, I also
high
had
inflammatory
acne.
markers.
That was also a big part of my
the acne. So I find very interesting that the carnivore diet works well for that. I made a podcast on the subject. Anyway, so for Janina, that might not be you, but for Janina, what we saw is we actually kind of saw the same thing, which means we do that new age carnivore diet of red meat and some fruits and honey, which helps with fasting insulin, it seems, and stuff like that. We didn't do it for that. We did it for Janina and ended up being in the same place, right?
Yeah.
But so what we did is a protocol version of it, which means, yes, we have the red meat, but only at night, because that's where you will sleep the best, recover the best, digest it the best. I've made so many podcasts on it. But the idea is, as you've seen, it's actually very little food during the day, just a bit of fruits, bit of nuts, some honey during training, that's all. And then a massive amount of red meat at night, and off you go.
Yeah, and it is not a diet for the weak, because if you have like social events and everything, sometimes
you can't have anything.
You can't have anything, actually, really. Like, I can't even have a salad. Like, even vegetables inflame me and actually gave me a lot of trouble, especially raw vegetables.
But that's the point of the carnivore diet.
Yeah.
It's like, don't have vegetables.
Yeah. Exactly.
So for many different reasons, like you agree or not, it doesn't matter.
And this I cannot have any gluten, any lactose, anything. So,
but that's a very sensitive stomach. So okay, so now let me explain why Let me explain why we did it this way. I looked at Janina as a system, right? So the key was the gut flora is a huge part of that. I don't care if you believe in gluten intolerance or not. I don't care. None of this matters. What happens, she gets high inflammatory markers. I don't want that for the reason I explained before. So her gut flora does better with fasting, with the red meat, right? And we tested it with the fruits and the honey. The whole system does better. The gut flora seems to be doing better, at least the stomach, so the enteric system does better. She has less of an upset stomach, less acne, less reaction on the skin, less inflammatory problems. So that means that the whole system is working better in those conditions. That's as far as you can take it. Do not break it down further than that, because now you're starting to have a functional segregation where you are taking away from the total of all parts. Because you're starting to analyze each part separately, and you cannot do that without putting them back together at the end. So no, if we up the protein, yeah, but if we up the protein, we might overload the digestive system, which means, yes, more protein in, but less digested because the whole system is overloaded because their stomach could not take the load. Just like there's a moment you can't recover anymore, I don't care how much you eat, past a certain amount of workouts, because recovery of the workouts is not all food. That's bullshit. The nervous system has to be able to recover depending on the circumstances around where you are and everything. And things like even pollution will get in the way. Your capacity for breathing. Like there's so much stuff that goes into it. Like you cannot break them all down and say, oh, do this. It is absolutely not true. Everything is a system. So I take Janine as a system and we see an overall progress or not. We set constraints. Well, once we have set constraints, we look at the results of the system. Systems do what they do. You don't get to take one part and change it. That is not true. The whole system now is changed because you change the constraints. Look at the constraints, see where the system is. If you don't like the results, then you change one thing and then we go and everything. But just because you change one thing does not mean that one thing is responsible for the result, therefore do more of that. That's not true. Once you change one thing, you've changed the entire system. The whole system has a different function. That new function will create, that new purpose will create a new function, and the function is what you test. But do not make the mistake of thinking that because you change that, this happened, therefore causation. No, there's a correlation, not a causation, because once you change one part of the system, you've changed the purpose of the whole system. That new purpose will create a new function. That new function is what you're looking at. But it's just an A to blah, 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 blah. It takes 16 different ways to get there. So no, once you've changed that and you've seen results, then that's how the system should work. From there, you just keep it there because the purpose you created is a proper purpose. To go like, yeah, but that A causes D is not true. That A caused a new purpose that created a new function and ended up with a new result, right? And increasing that might not get you the result you want because there's every time you increase that A, the whole system will change and sometimes pass what you wanted. And so, yes, some people say, well, you can decompose it like this and there. Right, but now you're going to face the problem that some systems take longer than others to adjust. So what do I mean by that? For example, I think the main issue also with nutrition is that people are lying to themselves. Once you do, for example, like we're in Brazil and Brazilians love to drink, especially to have fun. What we've seen many times is that we have friends that cannot have fun without drinking. I'm sure it's the same in the US. We're just talking about Brazil because we're here, but I've heard people in the US say the same. And suddenly you wake up one day and you cannot have fun without drinking. Right, so the problem is alcohol was a lie, right? It wasn't you having fun. It was your brain on a substance going another way. It wasn't you having fun. You were lying to yourself about having fun. That's not true. You were just inebriated.
Yeah.
That's all. You just had a sympathetic fix that I talk about all the time that allow you to be in a different state. It's a lie. That state is not you. You just used something to create, you just change the function of the thing by introducing a new thing and you like that function better. Yes, but that's still not you. You had to introduce that because once you introduce alcohol, obviously other consequences start to pop up. Your entire behavior changes because it's, by the way, your gut flora will change. You know what I mean? Like you will create a number of things that obviously on top of it from a social, psychological perspective, or I want more fun, therefore I drink more. Yeah, you can imagine where that leads you. So, and that's the point we're going to make about nutrition is it is a matter of stabilization. So that means, I'm sorry to tell you, but no, you cannot use nutrition as a fix to change your state. That you're going to have to do outside of that. We use nutrition in a what you will call excessively boring way, which means we have sushi once a week. The rest of the time, Janina eats exactly the way she described.
Well, and that's actually the thing with stripping down your diet the way I did is everybody once in a while, like for example, I get like let's say my prep. I got very tired in my prep a little bit too much, and what happens when I get tired is I want to eat more, and that's why it's a very important question is what is your hunger, right? So for me, it's usually when I get more tired, I get hungry. Not for, I mean, I will still eat the same amount of fruits, but meat at night. But sometimes the fruits will increase, and it's really hard to stop that. Once you are very tired and everything, you have to really take your rest and everything. But because it's so stripped down, if I go wrong, the only thing that I do is eat more fruit. So it's very controllable and it's very easy to adjust. The more false food you introduce in your diet, like let's say you have a Snicker bar every day because that's your treat. It's very easy to increase that and fall off a path of now you're eating ice cream at night, now you're doing this, now you're doing that. So then when you get off the road, you get so much more off the road than when you have a more basic diet.
So let's go over this for a second because it's a very important point you just made. You were tired, you were hungry. That happens to everybody. So some people are going to say the reason you were tired is because you were hungry, because you were not eating enough. Actually, that might not be true. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But in that case, it is not. We know for a fact, and I'm not going to go into the biology of it because I hate biology, but I unfortunately studied it a lot. There are specific hunger control mechanisms in place in the body that get weakened when you're in a tired state. We know, for example, that people that don't sleep enough, we're going to go into the ghrelin. I don't want to go into that. But anyway, there are specific, on a biological level, things that happen, hormones and shit like that, where literally when you're tired, you will be more hungry. That has nothing to do with your need for food. It's just because you're hungry, you're fucking with the system, and consequences happen. That's it. Like, you'll see, More Plates, More Dates has an entire thing on that where he explained this in all the detail that I don't want to go into. But the point is, when you're tired, no, you might not be hungry because you need more food. You might be hungry because you're tired. And in a prep where we train harder, the weights go up and everything, it'd be very easy to start to now be less recovered from a nervous system perspective. You know why? Because the stress is starting to go up, because the anticipation of the competition is starting to build. That will tax your nervous system. That alone will make you more tired and therefore less likely to regulate your hunger. On that alone, you would eat more, which of course could make you gain weight, depending. But then on the weight class, it's a problem. So now you introduce another stress. So now you're not recovering as well. You see the complexity of the system, how it works.
And for me, what it does for me, it leads me to not taking in the recovery I need. So I think exactly. I even went into the competition under recovered because I was leveling out that feeling of that I needed to recover with food. And I know that if I eat more, I will train more and harder, but it will give me less results because I'm not recovering from it. So what happens is I get overstimulated and I sleep less good.
Yeah,
so
and that's a nightmare. Yeah.
That exactly. So for me, it is actually very good to have these very clear signals because I like to be able to adjust my training based on where I'm at. Like sometimes you need to take a deload week. You need to do all of that.
Let's go into this.
If you eat, let me tell you, if you lift and you eat sugar before, your lift will feel a lot better. But is it a better lift or does it just feel better? And those are things that I had to separate for myself very clearly.
Let's backtrack because it's an important part. So what would we do different if she's tired in a prep? Right. So we're not going to change the food, right? We're just going to adjust to the training. What it means is as you get closer to a competition and nerve starts to get to you, you're basically shutting down your nervous system, so your recovery is affected, right? And that's normal. Everybody's like that. You're going to be, 50 people and the internet is going to look at you lifting. You want to perform well. There's pressure. Pressure is taxing on the nervous system. So that means we need to increase recovery. So we have two ways of doing that. Or we increase recovery through, like, for example, it can be pampering, doing your nails better, or, your hair more, stuff like that. Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll take all of it.
So you can also, there's a physical side, right? As your nervous system gets shot, you're going to be a bit tighter and everything. So you can start doing massages. You can do cryotherapy. You can do the jacuzzi, whatever. As you increase the stress on the nervous system, we can increase the various ways of doing recovery so that we can compensate through that for the stress that you added to your normal training. Or option B, we adjust the training, which means we will have more deload weeks, or we will not train certain lift as often or stuff like that as we get ready for the competition. Option 3 is you learn to control your mind better. So we can have option A, option C would be a mix of the two will be the best way, which means learn to control your mind better by rewarding yourself with certain things that put the competition in a more positive way, right? If you see the competition as a negative, we're going to have to touch your training. If you see it as a positive, it will be a lot easier to recover from.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. And for me, lifting is always, why I love it is because I feel like it's a way to controlling my mind, right? And I don't want to eat a bunch of, even if it's fruits, like, because I don't eat sugar. If it's a bunch of fruit before my lift, because I will
you'll fuck up everything. No, because then you change the whole system.
I will feel better, but it doesn't mean that the lift is better. And I will maybe do too much. Because that's the thing with strengthening. You can do too much and decrease your progress because you're doing too much. You need to be very, very in touch.
You can change your technique.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it feels better, and then you start to get cocky. You change your technique. You forget to do.
And then,
like, it doesn't work.
I do notice that before certain lift, I like to have some fruits or some nuts, for example, because it does stabilize my mind a little bit, because it makes me less of a, like, in a hunt mode.
So at the end, what you hear is we're doing everything on nutrition to stabilize things, so that when you go lift, you face the lift with the most stable, reality-based system we can create. Everything we do is about creating reality. What do I mean by that? Sympathetic fixes are a way to avoid reality. You know what I mean, if you have done No Fix November, is reality as a specific taste that most people find almost depressing. Because, let's be honest, it's not nearly as stimulating as having fixes and being on YouTube and having stuff, for example, like that dopamine thing they're trying to... It's not that simple as dopamine, because there's an entire system, but you get what I'm saying. That, you know, those things that YouTube and Instagram are trying to go like that 3-second tack, 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 porn with men, or, I mean, like, this is the society...
Buying with women.
This is the society we live in, where they're going like this. And so when you remove yourself from that and try to stabilize things, and, for example, be lifting as stable as you can, you are in true reality. Reality has a specific taste that is more complex, far less stimulating than the shit you see online, on the internet. There is really reality outside has a different taste of reality inside the internet. So what we're trying to do, is to make you grounded in the reality as much as we can when we live, because that's where results happen. They happen in reality, not on the internet.
Yeah, and I took the example of competition because I thought it is a more obvious example, but I can also have it in real life. Like, I noticed that when I start to have a craving towards eating more fruits, and also cutting the fast shorter, like making it 15 hours instead of my normal 19 hours, it is because there's usually certain parts that I don't like to address or that stress me out. And it can be something very slow that I don't want to do. And it still makes me hungry and avoid that thing. So instead of fixing that thing that I need to fix anyway, I just get into like, I'll eat a bit more, and it distracts. It gives you a sympathetic fix, right? So if you cannot maintain a certain protocol of nutrition that's very clean, it can also be a sign that there's certain things in your life that you're not addressing, or that you're simply tired, or that you're simply doing too much. But it's really difficult to address those things.
Even if you're tired, you're avoiding the fact that you're doing either incorrectly or too much. Too much is incorrect anyway. If you're tired, you're doing things incorrectly.
But it's hard sometimes to address those things. I understand. So it is difficult.
I get that, especially with women. I get that all the time, and they tell me, yes, but I want to do those things. I'm like, yeah, but I don't care. You're tired, recovering from it. Like, how do I recover? Then we're back to the deterministic Lego theory mindset of, I'm just going to eat more. That way I won't be tired. No, you're tired because maybe you can't recover from the workouts because you're not there yet. How about that? Maybe you can try to train for a 5K at full speed at the same time as you're trying to improve your deadlift. Some people can do it. 99% cannot. Maybe you're just programming incorrectly, where instead of taking the time to get good at something, you want to get good at everything at all times, all year long.
I did make that mistake. And
shit like that, by the way, you cannot do that.
The thing is,
you cannot be everything you want and training at full intensity all year long. No one can.
Yeah.
You cannot either. And now you go like, well, what do I do not to get tired? Don't train like that because the system is not designed to endure that. The questions get louder and louder and louder, and eventually you break, and now you can't train for 6 months. It's just none of this works like that. The whole thing is a system. You can't just cut. It would be so much easier if functional segregation were possible, right?
Yeah.
If you could just cut down things and you add some protein and you're fine. I got news for you. It doesn't work like that.
And actually, I see it more as not even as you cannot. It's an opportunity to have a better direction towards your training and towards your life in general. And I think it's a waste to not take that opportunity to have that clear vision. That's how I like to approach it instead of, because people often say like, oh, you're not eating. Are you like, is it a punishing yourself thing? And like people really, especially women, really often go that route. No, it's an opportunity. Exactly. It's an opportunity to see things more clearly. And I like to take that opportunity.
Yes, that's exactly what they don't want.
And yeah, exactly.
They don't want to see things clearly.
But it's interesting what you say, like, oh, just eat a little bit of more protein and then you fix it right here. It's a little bit the same. I mean, it is exactly the same, actually, as what bodybuilders do. Oh, I'll just squeeze the bicep more so it grows. Yeah, but that only works if you're on drugs. Because you're not working at function. You're working at aesthetics, right? And those are two very different things.
Plus, you're separating the bicep, trying to separate it from the pecs or the lats or whatever. Let's say you have more biceps. I'm like, all right, but if your biceps are stronger but your lats are not, when you go under heavy weights or stuff like that, you will either tear the lat or the bicep. Or, by the way, you will have a specific rotation of the shoulder that might not be the correct one, and now your shoulder is going to hurt. Like, there's no free lunch. It doesn't work like that.
It only works if you train to pose on stage.
No, it doesn't work either. They have massive shoulder pain, and then you can't, if you have massive shoulder pain, you can't bench or you can't do pecs correctly. That will show on stage. No, it doesn't. This is all a lie. Just like drinking for having fun is a lie. Can you drink and have fun? Yes. If you need to drink to have fun, then you're not having fun.
Yeah.
You're just getting inbred. I'm not going to say that because with my French accent, it never works. You're just getting drunk. Yeah. That's all, right? You just need to change your state because you hate reality as it is. So instead of running toward alcohol, you change your reality. And you know how you do that? Through actions, right? But the more you escape reality, the less you act.
Yeah.
Like this is what we see look at society the way we are right now. Like pushing away competence is not exactly working now, is it?
But and that's the thing. The training we do and the nutrition we do, like the nutrition to stabilize and the training to destabilize, they're both very focused on seeing the reality. I gotta tell you, if I didn't have such a good life because you provide that for me, I would not be able to look at myself and look at my life the same way. Like you have to have such a life that you want and the things you want. Yes, I know, but it is. I can't imagine. It is very difficult.
Don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. Then you create it. No, I'm sorry.
Look, no. I showed emotion and sympathy for once.
I don't care. No, I don't care. I don't care. Then you create it, right? I mean, like,
I know.
And by the way, before you say I have white privilege and all that shit, you have no idea how I started, how broke I was in the US and everything.
How I started? No. I have a lot of privilege. Yeah. You didn't. I did.
No, my point is,
I have a very good life.
My point is, if it's hard, then work on it harder.
Yeah, no, it's true.
No, I'm tired. We are not helping people by helping them find excuses. Right, so this is my problem with social media right now, is everything is entertainment, and to sell stuff, you sell excuses, because that, I got to tell you, that works a lot better. It's not working. We have obviously lost the war, or are losing the war in best case, against obesity and everything. Like the bill is coming due, again, that Ozempic is coming, like that shit about selling excuses, look where it's getting us. Yeah. We have to stop saying that incompetence is okay. So, I don't care. This is what we're doing for Janina. It's fasting with some honey, some fruits, so it's a fasting protocol, massive amount of meat at night. This is 6 days a week. The only difference is Thursday night when we go get sushi with our daughter, and she has, therefore, a little bit of rice. But after that, there's no alcohol. We drink coffee, that's about. She drinks water all day long.
I cannot drink any alcohol. By the way, I get
on the protocol you get so
I
drunk.
get so drunk. It's not even
so we
funny.
have one beer once a month, maybe. So
And that's already like
that's a lot.
stretching it.
Right. So actually, she
Yeah.
gets buzzed on sushi now
Yeah,
because
I
of
do.
the rice. Yeah,
I
then she
do.
can't sleep well.
Yeah,
Anyway,
so it's really a
so-
social event, and
we train twice a day, at least 5 days a week, and it's our life all year long. You don't want it, that's fine, by the way. We're telling you how we do things. This works. I've proven it with Janina. I've proven with others. She's gained, yes, she has the genetic for it, but it's still 20 pounds, at least 16, 17 pounds of that of muscle.
yeah, I
right?
mean, and that's the thing with genetics. Like, you cannot manipulate your genetics. Like, I was gonna.
Doesn't matter. That's going the route of an excuse. Because they're all going to say it's your genetics. No, it's not just that. It's the doing it correctly, consistently over large amount of time. It took us 2 years to fix the inflammatory issues and the gut problems and all that, as she kept training hard and kept putting the muscle, but there were up and downs on the skin, on a number of stuff. But we ended up fixing it. Yes, it took 2 years, but now she's extremely stable because we committed to something that is working and just making sure the system goes the right way. She has to be as healthy mentally and physically going into powerlifting. We train the same way we do the nutrition. We get there, she's doing max set of 4 deadlifts. She did 385 for 4. We're moving to 405 for 4. And she's going to do that until it looks a certain way. And that's our opening weight for the competition. We do everything the same way all the time because the system seems to be working well. It takes time. It takes an awful amount of discipline. And yes, to most of you, it's going to be awfully boring and it's not entertaining. And therefore, you should not be doing it. That is entirely on you. We're going to tell you what we do, what we see works, and that's as far as I go. I will not make excuses as to why people should not do it.
No,
you don't want to do it, don't do it. That is your problem.
I think everybody should.
But if you want to
give it a
be
try.
grounded in reality, use nutrition as a force for stabilization and training as a force for destabilization. This is where you will change your body composition, is through training. Nutrition should be the most stabilizing force you have, which means no fixes and all the time the same way. In the case of Janina, fasting protocol.
Yeah.
This works. We are proving it. That's as far as I'm taking the conversation. See you guys next week.
Bye.